Hello everyone. Today I want to discuss what are Maxwell equations and how electromagnetic theory applied is developed. Before that, I want to discuss some history before Maxwell. In 60s, Newton developed his famous corpuscular theory of light and says that light is basically made up of packets called corpuscles. After that, Huygens comes and says that light is basically a wave which consists of wave fronts. Then in the field of electricity and magnetism, Faraday and Oersted, similarly Ampere's come and developed their own laws. Faraday says that the rate of change of magnetic flux produce induced EMF. Similarly, Oersted says that when current is passing through a straight wire, then it produces a magnetic field around itself. And if we brought a compass near that magnetic field, this compass will be deflected. Similarly, Ampere says that the magnetic induction over an Amperian loop is equal to the mu naught times to the total current enclosed by the loop. But all of these scientists cannot give the idea about the exact nature of light, that what is basically light. For that, Maxwell comes and he unified all of these laws and developed a set of simultaneous equations which is known as Maxwell equations, and these equations gives rise to the generation of electromagnetic waves, because on the basis of these equations Maxwell theoretically predict the speed of light, which is equal to 3 cross 10 power 8 meter per second. Similarly, Maxwell also says that light is basically consists of fluctuating electric and fluctuating magnetic field, and electric field produce magnetic field while magnetic field produce electric field, which supported each other in space, and due to which electromagnetic waves are generated and produced through space. And the source for the generation of these electromagnetic wave is basically accelerated charge particle. Accelerated charge particle produce varying electric field, and that varying electric field produce varying magnetic field, which gives rise to the generation of electromagnetic waves. But the theoretically predicted speed of Maxwell is verified by the Hertz in 1886. Hertz basically take induction coils which was connected with a small sphere having a small gap between that sphere, which is basically act as a transmitter, and he supplied a fluctuating voltage to that induction coils, due to which spark produced in the gap between the sphere. He also take another loop of coil and connected sphere with it. He observed that there is a waves propagated through space from transmitter towards receiver, and spark produced in the receiver end. He also calculated the speed of their waves, so that's why the experimental confirmation further opened the door towards further invention and further discoveries. And after that, radar, microwaves and other different kinds of waves are discovered, which made a tremendous contribution in the science and technology. And now in today form, the phone, the mobile, radar, oven and other digital equipments and communication technology is available in this form as a result of the electromagnetic the founder of electromagnetic theory of light, Maxwell. And after that, the experimental confirmation of Hertz gave us this gift. Now comes towards our topic. Our topic is basically about the Maxwell equation, which is basically the birth of electromagnetic waves, because he theoretically predict the exact nature of electromagnetic waves, and says that basically electromagnetic waves consist of electric and magnetic field, And the electric component of that electromagnetic waves is basically explained by this equation. Similarly, the magnetic component of electromagnetic waves can be explained by this equation. And diagrammatically, we can display it like this. For example, the magnetic fluctuation is along y-axis, then the electric fluctuation will be along x-axis, and the propagation is along z-axis, because these magnetic and electric fluctuations are at a right angle to each other, and also at a right angle to the propagation of wave. And all electromagnetic waves travel with the speed of light, and the speed of light is 3 cross 10 power 8 meter per second, which was theoretically predicted by Maxwell from the 4 Maxwell equation. And this equation shows us that the nature of light is purely electric and magnetic, because you see here the electric permeability and the magnetic permeability term here. So these are basically the electric and magnetic field component, and this is your diagrammatical explanation. Now comes towards the famous 4 Maxwell equation. The first equation is basically the Gauss's law for electricity, which states that the electric flux through any closed surface is equal to the 1 over epsilon naught times the total charge enclosed by that surface, which means that if charge enclosed is 0, then electric field or electric flux will be 0. Or in other words, we can say that electric monopole exists. So this is basically the Gauss's law for electricity, which is the first Maxwell equation. Now the second Maxwell equation is basically, we can call it Gauss's law for magnetism, because in this equation and in this equation there is only one difference. Here is the electric field, and here in that in place of that here is the magnetic field. Now the right side of this equation is 0, which means that this equation is not symmetric, it is incompleted. And this equation gives that the magnetic monopole doesn't exist, because the magnetic flux through any closed surface around a closed surface is equal to 0, which means that the magnetic field have no end. Magnetic field are always in loop form, as we know that the magnetic field arises due to the magnet, and magnet have two poles, north pole and south pole, and the magnetic field arises from north pole and ends on the south pole, which form closed loops. If we consider an imaginary area in that region, then we observe that the magnetic field lines coming out of the area is equal to the magnetic field lines coming into the area. So for example, if you take the magnetic flux out of the surface positive and the magnetic flux entering the surface is taken as negative, then the total magnetic flux will be 0. So which means that no magnetic monopole exists. In other words, if we explain it like this, for example, this is a bar magnet and we cut this bar magnet into small pieces, then again this small piece also contains two poles, not south pole. It cannot contain single pole because magnetic monopole doesn't exist. And if we even cut this in another half, then that half of half also contain two poles, because magnetic monopole doesn't exist. Up till now, different scientists working on this, that why magnetic monopole doesn't exist. He theoretically verified that it maybe exists, but experimentally still there is no confirmation that why magnetic monopole doesn't exist. If magnetic monopole exists, then this second equation will be displayed or presented in this form, and this equation becomes symmetrical. In place of this 0, then we put here the mu naught QM, and this is basically Gauss's law for magnetism, which is then defined like this: the magnetic flux around a closed surface is equal to the mu naught times the total charge to the total magnetic charge enclosed by that surface. Magnetic charge means single monopole, but this is just a theoretical prediction. Still there is no experimental confirmation. this equation now becomes like this. Here is the electric flux around a closed surface is equal to 1 over epsilon naught times the total charge enclosed by that surface, and in this equation says that the magnetic flux around a closed surface is equal to mu naught times the total magnetic charge enclosed by that surface. But this is just a theoretical prediction. Actual equation is basically this, which means that no monopole or magnetic monopole doesn't exist. Now comes towards third equation, which is very simple, which is already we talk about in different times, and this is basically the Faraday law of electromagnetic induction, which shows us that changing magnetic flux produce an electric flux and hence arises an electric field. So this is the well known and well clear law. Now comes to the major contribution of the Maxwell, which is basically the Maxwell Ampere's law. In this law, this is basically called the correction term, which is basically the development of Maxwell, and this term basically the displacement term. Basically this term is called the displacement term, displacement current term. Why this is called displacement current? Because there are two types of current. One is conduction current and other one is a displacement current. Conduction current is basically flows in a conducting wires, while the displacement current even flows through dielectrics. Before this, no one can explain how electric field passes through a capacitor. So this is basically the Ampere-Maxwell law, which shows that current produce magnetic field and changing electric flux also produce magnetic flux. Current produce magnetic field, also electric field produce magnetic field. Before Maxwell correction, this is the only Ampere's law which is applicable only for constant current and constant magnetic field. But when Maxwell contributed in it, then this law is now applicable for constant as well as for varying magnetic field or varying electric current. For this, if we consider, for example, this is a capacitor and this is the two plates, this is the first plate and this is the second plate. In between the plate there is a dielectric, and we supply here a DC voltage to it. Then after some time, when the capacitor fully charged, then there will be no current flows across the plates of the capacitor, because we know that capacitor block DC and pass AC. Now if we connect an AC power supply, and after some time when voltage start to flowing across the plates of the capacitor, then we observe that the current flows continuously through capacitor because of changing electric field. We know that the alternating current is basically that type of current whose magnitude as well as direction varies with time. So due to the changing magnitude and changing direction of the electric current, changing electric flux arises, and due to that changing electric flux, magnetic field arises. That's why it gives birth to the generation of electromagnetic waves. On the basis of these equations, Maxwell theoretically predicted that basically changing electric field produce magnetic field and changing magnetic field produce electric field, which gave rise to the electromagnetic waves. And that electromagnetic waves consist of fluctuating electric and magnetic field, which have two parts, electric part and magnetic part, and these parts are at right angle to each other and also to the direction of propagation of wave, and its velocity is basically 3 × 10 power 8 meter per second, and hence all electromagnetic waves are transverse. It travels with this speed. So I hope all of you learn some basic things about the Maxwell equation and how electromagnetic theory of light is developed. So inshallah next time I will appear with the next interesting lecture. Thank you.